Last year I drove down Highway 1, which is one of the most scenic highways in all of North America and stretches out from San Francisco all the way down to Los Angeles. And that drive culminated at Santa Monica at the pier, which incidentally is also the end of Route 66. Now I did mention back then that at some point in the future I would do Route 66. And well, here we are today on Route 66. However, skipping out the portions from Santa Monica or from California, we've begun straight away from Phoenix, driving down to Arizona, past Tucumcari into Oklahoma City and onwards towards Chicago. So this is everything that we've experienced on that drive. This is Flagstaff, and it's a very important town on Route 66, principally because Flagstaff is the oldest town that used to have a paved section on Route 66. Flagstaff is a small town with lovely weather and a population of just around 140,000 people. It's got a vibrant Route 66 community, which is evident from the gorgeous murals that depict life on Route 66. Nonetheless, its proximity to the Grand Canyon is what brings several tourists flocking to this town as they ride or drive down Route 66. This here is the Grand Canyon, and the hour-and-a-half long diversion of Route 66 to come all the way down here is definitely worth it. I mean, the epic scale of this canyon, the height, the depth, the colors in the rock, it's all magnificent. To think that something like this has been in the making for 1,000,000+ years, it just boggles the mind. That grand is an apt description of what this canyon is all about. We're now in Amarillo, a big town, well, on Route 66 that's in the heartland of Texas, and it's got this typically traditional Texan feel to it. The character, well, it's all Texan, all over the top, loud, boisterous and full of life. Now, any big day in Amarillo should start off with a big hearty meal, and the best place to do that is right here at the Stockyards Cafe. Now, that's where I'm headed, get myself a big hearty breakfast, and I'm going to tell you more about Route 66 all along the way. Youngblood's Stockyard Cafe, an icon along Route 66, is owned by Tim Youngblood, who served a lot of food to big city folks and now to the community that lives in Amarillo or passes through on Route 66.
You know, when I was 14, the year that I came to Amarillo, I took a job with a fellow by the name of Homer Rice. He had a restaurant and a motel on Highway 66. And at that time, I was Homer's bellboy, busboy, room service waiter, dishwasher, and anything else he could think of, maintenance man. Anyway, it was quite a lovely job because all the business at that time was on Highway 66, and it was an extremely busy operation on that road. Our Air Force base is also here, so that kind of multiplied the amount of traffic that was always on Highway 66. That was the place to be during that period of time. In 1965, when we landed here in Amarillo, they were building the Interstate 40. So it was several years in the progress of Highway 66 up until about 1969 or so was still pretty vibrant. But once they completed it and went all the way into New Mexico, well, it pretty much died off, as all things on Highway 66 did. But it was a wonderful time. You know, during that period of time, Highway 66 was the place to to be and to travel. And of course, if you travel Highway 66 here in Amarillo, everything has 66 on it, Route 66, all the way up and down the road.
Well, of course, the Route 66 experience is really, really hard to describe because there's so much. You've got all the old historic buildings and signs. You've got all the old road that's part of it still there. You've got the people, which really make it what it is. It's a romantic thing. It's something that will grab you and doesn't let go, because the experience you get when you're traveling Route 66 is first, if you leave from Chicago, you got all the large city, and then you get out into the rural areas and you meet the small town people, and they're the same, but they're different. The Europeans and the foreign travelers that come over here from every country in the world like what it is because it's Americana. It's the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. After World War II, of course, it blossomed, it just exploded, and people traveling. Of course, the Grapes of Wrath, the people that were fleeing to California for jobs, but that's a kind of a downside, but yet it's still interesting and historical. But then after the war, the thing just took off.
Driving through Arizona or Texas, keep in mind that these are extremely dry states. The temperature during the day can be very hot, but at nights in Texas, they can get cooler. Nevertheless, most of the driving you're going to be doing through Texas or Arizona is going to be in the day, and this is going to be hot. So plan to carry a lot of water, a lot of refreshments as well. Anything that can keep you hydrated. It's essential that you stay hydrated on that trip because it's long and it's very dry weather. The Texan landscape is huge. It stretches far beyond what the eye can see. This is what is known as the Texan Panhandle, a flat, featureless, and most of the time hot and arid area that forms the northernmost region of Texas. We are slowly leaving it behind to visit another icon along Route 66, made famous by Hollywood. Our last stop in Texas, the U-Drop Inn. Route 66 has been popularized thanks to Hollywood, which has used extensive sections of the Highway 66 in various movies. Now, one of those bits we've seen extensive portions of Route 66 in a very iconic cult movie involving motorcycles, which was called Easy Rider. And another movie for more modern times, which has popularized Route 66, is a film made by Disney, which is called Cars. Now, if you have a kid at home, you've definitely seen Cars. And right behind me, that Conoco Cafe or the Conoco Tower and the cafe are there. Well, that was used in the movie Cars. Of course, the signage on that building said Ramones in Radiator Springs. So well, that's the building right behind me there. Some of the sites that shouldn't be missed along Route 66 are the museums, which are liberally peppered all along Route 66 in fact. So stop over there. They're a treasure trove of information, a lot of history and a lot of information to be gleaned from these museums. I'm at a Route 66 museum here in Clinton, which is just a few miles short of Oklahoma City. And it's got some historical information about the evolution of Route 66 from back in the 1920s all the way up to modern times. It gives you a lot of information about the small towns that existed along Route 66, how they evolved, how they prospered, and of course how some of them died out as well. But there's a wealth of information to be had in these museums. Definitely a must stop if you are traveling on Route 66. If you are traveling on Route 66, what you need to keep in mind is that some of the distances can be enormously long, will take you a lot of time, so account for that very well. Another vital aspect to keep in mind when you're traveling on Route 66 is if you are on a motorcycle, then you need to plan your fuel stops accordingly. These have to be planned well in advance. You need to mark them out on a map and identify just how much of a range you can get on your motorcycle, otherwise chances are you could run out of fuel on the Route 66. All along Route 66 there are several attractions that you must stop by. Now some of these are in a dilapidated state, they are in a state of ruin, run down completely, but others like this souvenir shop that I'm standing in front of, which has this, well, very rustic look and feel to it, and sells souvenirs and memorabilia about Route 66. And of course this cafe that I'm standing right alongside, the Rock Cafe. Now these are thriving establishments, they're small but well prospering thanks to the tourists who come along driving or riding on Route 66. Rock Cafe, there's a very important reason for it being featured on the show, and that's principally because of its proprietor Dawn Welsh. Now Dawn quit her job on the cruise liner, came down to Stroud to settle down, start a family, and of course run the Rock Cafe. But more important than that, Dawn is the inspiration for a character in a Disney Pixar movie. Dawn Welsh is Sally Porsche in Cars.
John Lasseter and Pixar and Disney invited everybody that were inspirations for the movie Cars to the premiere. And they told us that we were part of the movie, but they did not tell us to the depth that it was. It wasn't until I arrived at the premiere that they said, by the way, your character is Sally, so watch that character. So it was beyond words, and there were moments when I cried because, you know, they really did tell the story, and you know, that drive that Sally takes with Lightning McQueen, that was something that I really did with John Lasseter and so many of the other Disney people that wanted to connect to Route 66 while the making of the movie was happening. And to see that on camera was just outrageous.